Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to have with us Alka Pande. Most of you are acquainted with her work. I mean, she's a stalwart. I mean, she wears many hats. She's, of course, a teacher first, uh, and also a practitioner. She is a curator. She writes books, wonderful books, art books. She's, in a way, kind of an ambassador for Indian art abroad, here and abroad. Uh, I think few days ago, she created a wonderful exhibition in the Bihar Museum. If you are lucky enough, please go and see. It's one of the most beautiful curatorial work done in India lately. But today, we are here to discuss about a series of books that she has conceived. And if you look at this series, I'll just give a short intro and then I'll leave it to Alka mostly to do the talking. This is a unique kind of series, so I'll just maybe, oops, yeah, sorry. So this is a series about different kind of subjects related to art and aesthetics. And there are 14 books in the series. So it's not as if we are only able to display 3 here. This is, of course, commissioned by Art Shila, the Art Trust, and everything, right from the beginning of the book to the design to the final product is almost single-handedly coordinated by Alka. One of the things is that we do see these kind of books abroad, but in India we have a lack of art education in a way, and so sometimes this is basically the need of the hour. So before I begin, Alka, so let's just jump into the questions. So this is actually called 108 Portraits of Indian Culture and Heritage. I know that this is one of your dream projects, right? You're working for it for a long, long time, 5 years, but if I take the time limit, it's like your life's also realization there. Why 108? Or maybe before that, maybe I give the context of how you tried to conceive the entire thing, and then of course we can take that forward.
Hello, everyone. Do excuse my voice. I have a bit of a laryngitis, but I did want to share my work, and there could be nobody better than Pinaki to do so.
Thank you.
Because Pinaki and I come from a similar background, both pedagogy, theory, and practice. So, why did I start this? For many years, almost 20 years, I was teaching history of art to a bunch of students who were just not interested in what I was teaching. This was in Punjab University, and I'm talking of the year from 1982 to 2000 till I got my Charles Wallace India Award and I went off to London to do my postdoc. These were students or artists who got admission nowhere, or just somebody who wanted a room in the hostel because art history was not well known. So if I told anybody when I was doing my second MA in art history, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing history of fine art. So they would say, finance kar rahe ho? I said, no, it's the history of fine art. What is fine art? I said, when you look at a Nataraj and you wonder what it is, where it comes from,
Right.
what is the context, what is it made of, what does it speak of, that is a cultural construct. Anyway, I went on saying art history, but today I would say that I work more like a cultural translator, which includes history, anthropology, literature, philosophy. I've also been very, very lucky, I must say, that I grew up in an atmosphere where I grew up listening to the riyaz of music. My mother was a trained singer of the Gwalior Gharana, and she was passionate about her art, and every morning 5:30 she would be doing riyaz, sare gama, aro avaro of music. And then, in my days, I'm really quite old, senior citizen. Of course, I refuse to say super or junior, but in my days, in North Indian families, we all had to learn music and dance. So I learned Bharatanatyam for 5 years from Yamini Krishnamurti, and it opened another world for me. With that, I had my convent education, lived in a very political city of Delhi, and then I also went into media. I did radio broadcasting and read news on Bombay Doordarshan. Why I'm telling you this is because all this has added to my journey in making these books. After teaching for 20 years to a bunch of completely non-interested students, particularly when I was teaching Indian aesthetics, I taught a history of Indian architecture. And I taught a history of Western art, from early Christian Byzantine to the Renaissance. They were just not interested. But you know what happens? That it's in the teaching that there is a lot of learning. I had to make my lectures, and in our days, we had no Wikipedia, we had no hyperlinks. So I had to sit through slides, look at the slides, teach with slides. It was a lot of learning while I looked at these slides. The other thing was my own research. Again, by the time I submitted, the computer had just got in. And all what I had to do was to go and do primary research, which was on a Leela Murti of Shiva called Ardha Narishwara. Now, when I went for my postdoctoral, I'd also done a book on Indian music. So when I went to my postdoctoral, I could sit on any course, and I decided to go and sit on this course called Reading the Performative. And this is in 1999. I rushed to the class and I said, my, I've done a book on performances, so this is what it is. But I didn't realize that the language of art history was so different in the West. I had to really struggle because reading the performative was all about queer literature. And reading queer literature in the West was an eye-opener for me. I came back to India, and then my first, what they call, and I would not like to call it coffee table, but my first coffee table book called Ardhanarishwar, the Androgyne, Reading the Gender Within, was published. That happened because of this transformation of looking at this syncretic image of half man, half woman, and looking at gender and sexuality in the West opened another world for me. Is Paris Burning? Looking at the art of Morimura, the French, the Japanese photographer who was showing nude penises under a skirt. I was shocked. And I thought, I don't know where have I come. But being an Indian woman, we are very resilient. I didn't want to go back to Punjab University saying, I can't cope with it. So I went on, and a German intern there in the University of Goldsmiths told me, I see your struggle, Alka. Because I had gone to Goldsmiths, the most cutting-edge place from where the young British artists came from, and it was all queer there at that time. The Turner Prize awardees were from there. So she said, read this book by Lechte called 50 Key Thinkers. And that's when my journey started. With my love for Indian aesthetics, the seed was sown there. Because when I would sit in these classes, they would never, and I'm talking of 1999, nobody was interested in India. We were backward. It was the time of the Japanese. I had Japanese students with me. Yeah. They were all young princesses literally coming from Japan. Japan had the money. And I would keep saying, but in India, you know, this happens, and you know how the English are so politically correct, and they would just be so polite and say, sure, we will attend to you later. But let us listen to what Yuki, or whatever her name is, has to say. I come back to India with my postdoctoral, and I started chasing the post-structuralists. I wanted to know what Nietzsche had done. I wanted to write about the Deleuze, Guattari. I wanted to only talk about all this. And then, can you imagine? It was when I saw Aishwarya Rai walking with a gown, a Galliano gown at the Cannes Festival. That is when I said, enough of the West, because the next year I see Sharmila Tagore wearing a Banarsi sari and walking there. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I've seen the West. It's like Oscar Wilde, who said, if you are tired of London, you are tired of life. I love London. I still go there. I've just seen a most magnificent show at the Tate Modern on African art. It's in London that the first smell of what is going to change the world happens, in spite of it going downhill with Brexit, but that's where the criticality
The
of art
art,
begins.
especially with art.
Yeah. So when I come back, I rejected, after 5 years, after chasing, literally being post-colonial,
Right.
rubbing my nose to Western philosophy, to Western art, trying to be, you know, oh, I know the language. I'll talk about taxonomies. I'll talk about trajectories. I said, no, not at all. I went back to my art and culture, which I knew best, where I felt comfortable.
Yeah. I just interject one thing. One thing about Alka, and this is something of an observer, kind of an observer of her work and all that. One great thing about Alka is that when you write about Indian art, you exotize it because you know the market is for the West. But for Alka, I mean, that is something I really admire in you, is that you are unapologetic. You know this is your art, and you of course take it to the other people, your people and the West, but there is no such kind of exotification, and you don't validate it, that. So that's just an interjection because I wanted to make a
No,
point.
thank you for that. Because it took me a long time to get there. Because I was a chamcha of the Goras. Believe you me. For a long time. You know, when you go abroad, you start miming them and speaking in that language. You stop speaking in English. You know, you kind of walk a little low. But you know, after I saw and I realized that I don't want to wear a Galliano gown. I'm only going to wear my sari. Okay, today I'm in my work clothes. I would ideally have liked to have worn my beautiful silks. I just got an award in Manchester. I did wear my Banarsi, my red Banarsi. I do that. In India, I don't need to valorize my Indianness, but whenever I am abroad or doing anything, it has to be Indian because I am very, very happy with my identity. Now let me come to
Yeah.
108.
Yeah, 508. It's
yeah.
like a
Yeah.
strange number, right?
Yeah, because you would say Neil McGregor has written a book called The World in 100 Objects.
Right.
Yeah.
It's quite popular.
Then there are then Goswami, B.N. Goswami wrote The Essence of Indian Painting in 101.
Right. He just
Now,
passed
I
away.
can't, Now, with two men, sorry, I'm a woman, I don't want to be left behind. So I said, what should I do? I will do what I know best, which is Indian philosophy. I went to 108. And you see the 108, where did I get it from? From the Aksharmala. Then, if you read, because when I was doing Ardhanari Ishwara, it is Shiva and Shakti. When you look at Shakti and you look at the Sri Yantra, the two inverted triangles and the other triangles which come into it, there are 108 points, sacred points which come there. And then all of you will be knowing the story of Sati. So when Sati immolated herself and Shiva was doing the great Tandava, he ran with the body of Shakti on his shoulders, and the gods went to Vishnu and said, Pralay will happen, help us. So Vishnu with his Sudarshan Chakra cut and highlighted the body. Because when there's no Sharira, then there is no grief as such. And that body fell into 108. So there are 108 sacred geographies. And I thought, why don't I tell the story of Indian art through 108 works? Because we in India are all about storytelling. And each book of mine,
Yeah.
should I explain how I did the book?
Yes, so maybe I'll just, preface this. So if you go to the book, it's a really well-made book. I mean, frankly, and as a designer, I'm always interested in well-made books, well-designed books. So for example, this is the book on Indian vernacular and indigenous art. So you have separate books on Pottochitro and Madhubani and all that, but it's kind of an intro book for people who want to get initiated into that. But you have pockets where you have, say, for example, a calendar like this, where you have got all the festivals associated with those art forms. For example, in the textile book, you have a great insight which actually talks about the dyeing process. In the printmaking, there is something else. This is very innovative. It's not predictable. It's unpredictable, as India is, of course, all the time. And so please tell me, because as I know it, there is a young designer who designed this, carried out, but you almost laid out everything and the peripherals for him to do that, right? So please, take us through that process. I'll be very happy to hear that.
I'm delighted to have Pinaki with me, who's so appreciative. Thank you for that,
Thank
Pinaki.
you, thank you.
Now, what happened was, most of you, when you go abroad, you go to any of the bookshops, Waterstones, etc. You see little readers, you see little books. Understanding AI for idiots, understanding computer art for idiots. I also bought a lot of those books, believe you me. I was on a Charles Wallace grant, and believe you me, I spent all my money in doing my postdoc, doing courses at the British Library, British Museum, buying books, catalogs, used up all my money. It taught me a lot. And then I said, I want to celebrate my work. This may have taken 5 years of my life. It took me 5 years to do 14 books. But it comes from 30 years of my teaching experience. 20 years in Punjab University, 10 years I taught aesthetics at the College of Art. I've taught at NID. I've done my own syllabi for the DG Academy in Coimbatore. And I also taught a history of Indian apparel for NIFT. And all what I realized, what my students would want. Because I realized that many of us, we are so busy chasing the West, including me, we forget to look at our Dharma Shastras, we forget to look at the Natya Shastra itself, because the Natya Shastra is the basis for understanding Indian aesthetics. And I think my book is there, which is called
Rasa.
Shringar, The Many Faces of Indian Beauty. I did that only after 10 years of teaching at the College of Art.
Okay.
So the design for this book, I realized that, first the book has to be price sensitive. Two, if people do e-books, what are they going to, why should they buy my book? So in each book, I have the haptic, touch and feel. I wanted that.
So can I just show it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you talk and then.
Yeah,
This
so,
is
I'll
beautiful.
just show. For example, my book on crafts, I did a Sanji lamp. So when you take this book out,
Can you talk a
put
bit about that?
the art,
Yeah, a bit maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a sample so that people.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, so maybe.
okay. So Sanji art is the art which comes from Mathura. It is the art of paper cutting. So you all must be knowing about origami.
Japanese stuff.
But we have so much in our country. I'm a born-again Indian, literally babbling in strange tongues about the beauty of my country. So Sanji art is you cut all these refined papers, you make Radha and Krishna, you make all aspects like the Pushti Margis, the ones who are into Krishna Bhakti. This is done particularly in the area of Mathura and Vrindavan. So I just thought, in this book of crafts, I could have got any other craft, but everybody knows that. And I'm delighted that my, aim was realized because Pinaki
I didn't know. I didn't know.
So I'm so happy that I chose the right craft. So this, if you put a candle in it, the shadows which will come is beautiful. So this is the first thing. And then I talk about the Indian arts. I talk about the fact that how Indian arts is a Devakala. And believe you me, I'm talking of the beauty of Sanatan. I'm not here trying to be great anything. Just how inclusive we are, how fantastic we are as Indians. Like the indigenous, the folk tells you all about the fact that the Aranyakas, we are the greatest watchers of climate change and sustainable development, our folk art, our tribal artists. So I talk of it as a Devakala, where I talk of Smriti, Vak, and Shruti. These are the three things: speech, sound, and memory. And then for each of these books, I have a lot of, the introduction, the preface.
Yeah, so I'll just, I can show it.
Yeah.
You can tell.
For example, why did I write about the crafts? What is it? What drew me to the crafts? It was a fact that when I was a very young child, I used to go to my grandmother's house. There was a Nauchandika Mela there, and the man with a bioscope would come. So I give my personal, it's very personal, it's very anecdotal. I write about why did I do this book. And then each book has a detailed essay where I introduce what are the arts and crafts. Then I write about the arts and crafts, like in the textile book, from Rogan to embroidery. Everything is given. The essay is not more than 5,000 words, because I know nobody wants to read more. Nobody has the time. But if those who want to read more, there is a detailed bibliography at the back. You can go into further research. Then I have 108 crafts, which I've taken from north, south, east, west, central India, and tried to have every aspect of the arts there.
You have covered Thewa jewelry, Galicha, Tilla Jutti, woodwork, everything. It's like a compendium, literal compendium. It's literally wonderful. Wood carving from Madhya Pradesh, from everywhere.
So I'm going to end very quickly by saying
Yeah,
that the last thing which I love is the aesthetic experience in this book. Now, in this book, for example, what is my aesthetic experience is a detailed interview with the Sanji artist and the whole process of it. So you can make your own little lamp for all of you who are interested. You can make any kind of things. So
Yeah,
I'll
but
end.
just maybe one thing, that you also chose the colors, even, so there are symbolism associated with it as
Yeah.
well.
So for me, it's very important. Colors, in India, we have canons for everything. Literally, short of Anulom Vilom in yoga, we have canons for everything, even breathing in and out. So red symbolizes anger. If you look at Kathakali, there are all symbols: white, pacha, green. All colors have a specific meaning. I took green for folk and vernacular, not only because green is used a lot by the artists, but green stands for me as a symbol of fertility, abundance, and the forests. So therefore that.
Wonderful.
And, yeah.
Sorry, Alka, I mean, we're always, short of time. So there is this book on textiles, modern and contemporary art, crafts, sculpture, music, design, photography, dance, food, printmaking, architecture. You just cover it all.